Hello there folks, and welcome back to the Thomas Cynic. I don't do Q&As very often, but in celebration of 15,000 subscribers, I thought it would be nice to respond to some of your questions. Around a month ago, I put out a community post, and I got tons of queries about Thomas, personal life, and other stuff. This video is basically unscripted, so I might ramble a bit, but since you're here, you're clearly able to put up with me rambling, which is why this channel exists. Without further ado then, let's get into your questions. So we'll start with a simple one. Bird Pie asks, what is your favourite Railway Series book? So I change on this one a fair bit. I think Duke the Lost Engine is probably the best in terms of objective quality, but in terms of my personal favourite, it's more close between Duke, Mountain Engines, and Duck and the Diesel Engine. I think all three of those are super unique books, so Duke's book is obviously a fascinating look into the past, and it's meticulously set up throughout earlier volumes. Mountain Engines is really unique in sort of its setting, the actual place that it's set on the island. We never see the Mountain Engine fleet again, and that makes it really sort of mysterious and enchanting, I think. It also has my favourite story individually in there, which is Devil's Back. I made a video on that a while ago. And then Duck and the Diesel Engine, I think, is really the turning point in the middle of the series, when things went from, just good kids' literature to something much more gritty and nuanced. Our second question comes from Six Small Wheels, who asks, if you could write another Railway Series book, what would it be? So we're sticking with the Railway Series theme here, but this is a really interesting question, and I have thought about it actually. So I think if I could write another Railway Series book, it would be called Returning Engines, and it would be about Duke's experiences on the Skarloey Railway, like once he leaves his shed on the Mid-Sodor and is rescued, and kind of how the railway adapts to having him around. So him seeing Rusty, for example, would be a really interesting moment because I don't think he's ever seen a diesel before. He probably just thinks of him as sort of a strange creature. Maybe he sort of clashes with Skarloey a bit and realises how grown up Peter, Sam and Sir Handel are now. He'd also have to learn, of course, that his Grace died during the war, as we learn in Duke the Lost Engine. I just think there'd be lots of story opportunities with that. So I think if I could write another Railway Series book, that would be it. Sudrian Productions asks, what is your favourite analysis video that you've made, and what's your favourite that you've seen on another channel? So, two questions here really. As for my videos, I think my favourite analysis video is probably my one about Boulder, the one that kicked off my big return to the channel. I do love, of course, my fan content video, but that's not really analysis, even though it's probably my favourite overall. I also have a soft spot for my Tugs one, which I really enjoyed making, even though it didn't do as well on the algorithm. As for ones that I've seen elsewhere, again there are a few contenders here. I think one that is brilliant is Why Magic Railroad Almost Makes Sense by Caleb Train. That's a really interesting take and a super cohesive theory that makes a not very cohesive movie work. And then of course the Unlucky Tugs stuff, really an inspiration there. His video on Tugs is one of his best standalones, I think, but also his Timeline series and his Thomas Retrospective series have been some of the best things, I think, to come out of the sort of analytical side of this fandom in recent years. Blue Engine 99 asks, what are your thoughts on the early drafts of most of the Season 5 episodes? So this is a super interesting one, and it's really cool that new stuff is still being found. Season 5 is kind of the gift that keeps on giving, I feel. I do think, however, that the final versions of the episodes are much, much better than the drafts. Of course, the one that everyone's talking about is James and Super ED, which is really cool, but it was the right choice to cut it. It turns Death into much more of the kind of Tugs angle, rather than the Thomas one. It treats it as something trivial or to be expected, and everyone's commented a lot about how evil Sir Topham Hatt is. I am gutted we didn't get to see as much of Duke as originally planned in that season, but other than that, I think pretty much all the changes made are for the best. Thomas's Romanian fan asks, how on earth did you find out all the info for the fandom video? The answer to that is really boring and really simple. It was just lots and lots of research. I got a huge Word document up at the beginning, and I just started compiling links to projects for every year in that timeline, a good 50% of which didn't even make it into the video. That is definitely the biggest thing I've ever done, and that thing about the links is also the reason that projects that are no longer on YouTube, are no longer up on the site, didn't get much coverage. I won't be doing something like that video again, but it was a great experience and I'm really pleased with the reception it got. Thank you all so much for that, by the way. Sir Mecha G and a couple of others ask, what are your favourite fan-written series or productions? Obviously, one series I've been very vocally supportive of is Time Sensith's Tobias and the Sentinels. In terms of the kind of crazy sci-fi direction, I think that is just amazing, amazing content, amazing entertainment. Horrors of the Rails is also another one for me by Narrow Gauge. It's maybe not quite as well known, but I do love the audio format, and I think those are really well narrated. Now, both of those projects, and other great ones like the Horn Lake Saga by the Blue Snowplow, are super sort of horror-orientated, but there are also some great non-horror projects. So Stories of Sodor by Victor Tanzig is, I think, really good. I know that Tanzig has some fairly vocal critics, and I don't like everything that's in Stories of Sodor, but I still think it's really committed. It's been committed to one timeline, one style for so many years, and I think that has to be respected. I'd also mention here Enterprising Engine 9.3's stuff. I think that's really, really inventive and constantly sort of breaking the mold of what can be done with physical stuff. Carson's Video Workshop is also amazing, of course. We're really spoiled, so I don't know if I can pick a favourite, but I'd say probably Time Sensith if I had to. Microsave12 asks, what's your favourite Tugs episode? So my favourite one is still High Winds, because I love Zebedee and I love the visuals and the darker tone, but again, that's not objectively the best one. I think Munitions is, from a production standpoint, from a technical standpoint, pretty obviously better, and it also has some amazing writing as well. Of course, all of Tugs is brilliant. Even the weakest episodes and the weakest moments are still so much fun, and I'm so glad that we have that media still today. Bell Hill Mare asks, what is your favourite chocolate bar of all time? Really difficult one. I would say a Crunchy is probably the best, but I'd say Mars Bar and Double Deckers come pretty close for me. Doug's Film and TV asks, which Thomas and Friends characters could you see having a spin-off show? So I think the best answer to that question has already been done. The Pack. I really love the Pack miniseries. I think it's got so much heart. Other suggestions, though, would include, I think, the Skarloey lot would be kind of fun to see in their own show, or even just a show where the Henry, Gordon and James trio solve mysteries together or something. Something goofy and sort of not canon would be really fun to see in fan content, I think. Bongo Gary, great username by the way, asks, what kept you making content after you changed to a new channel and then returned to the Thomas Cynic? So a couple of you might know that a while ago I pursued a Minecraft channel for a bit, and then, as Bongo Gary so helpfully says, I returned to this one. Now, I think both of those things were absolutely the right choices at the time. I'm glad that I had that break. I think I needed it, and it makes the content here on the Thomas Cynic now much better. I definitely learned a lot. The reason I returned, though, was mostly because of that one Boulder idea I had, and then I had a few more, and the video idea list kind of kept on growing, and that's more or less where we are today. Noel the Large Prairie asks, if you believe that the boulder represents time, who do you believe represents memory? I think we do. I think the audience do. I think the children from Thomas and the Special Letter do. The thin and fat clergymen writing their books, I think they do. As per the Caleb Train video essay I mentioned a bit earlier in this video, maybe even Lady in Magic Railroad does represent memory in that kind of way. That's a super interesting question, and it might be something I have more to say about in the future. We'll see. Nice Cozy Hat asks, what is your opinion on the Great Discovery / Great Waterton / Stanley? So, I love them. I did make a video a while back about why I think the Great Discovery is the best Thomas movie, and that video is not brilliant, but I still do agree with most of the thoughts I put forward there. The Great Discovery was really a finale to Model Thomas, and there was so much effort that was clearly put into it. Of the three model movies, it's by far the best one. Great Waterton is a wonderful set, and I think that's actually a big part of why that movie shines. Stanley isn't particularly interesting as a character, but I think that's mostly the fault of the seasons after The Great Discovery, rather than the movie itself. So yeah, I think I love all of those elements, and I think The Great Discovery is a brilliant movie. Thomas and More asks, if you could own any prop from Thomas, what would it be and why? To be honest, I'd love to own a background prop. It would mean there wouldn't be as many kind of bits and pieces to take care of. You wouldn't have to be as careful, although of course you'd still want to treat it very well. Even something like the Queen of Sodor, or just a random troublesome truck, or a sailing boat would be, I think, a lot of fun to be able to sort of go into an episode and point out in the background where it appears. But if we're talking engines, then Stanley, linking to the last question, would be pretty near the top of my list. He's a really cool model. Josh Productions 07 says, do you think it would be interesting if the stories of ancient Sudrian figures mentioned in the Island of Sodor book were adapted into books or movies for an older audience? Yes, absolutely. Now, of course, I don't think it's financially viable to happen officially, but it's still a really great idea for like a fan project that would be totally different to anything else already out there. I mean, the Battle of Crovan's Gate would be something else by itself, I can tell you. John Valerico, I hope I'm pronouncing that one right, asks, if the show were to switch back to CGI or models, which side character, outside of the main cast, would you have an episode be focused on? So, people know this, but I really like Splatter and Dodge. I think they're really cool oddities in sort of the timeline of the show, and so I'd love to see an episode focusing on them. I think they're really fun. In terms of more serious answers, though, I would actually say Spencer. I think he's a fascinating side character. He has a very unique dynamic with, like, the main characters, because he's kind of an outsider. He's, like, looking into the world that we know from the mainland. And then also Proteus. I think Proteus is, you know, kind of a legendary character, and he's one of Hit's most promising additions. So I'd say Splodge, Spencer, or Proteus. Smokestack Studios asks, are you a Christian? So this is probably an allusion to my most recent video where I mentioned that I believe we are created, and yes, I am. So obviously I want to be chill about that. It'll never be the focus of my content here, and I obviously respect that other people have a right to their beliefs, but I do personally believe that there is a God, that Jesus is the Son of God and God himself, that he died for my sins, rose again, and lives forever. It's kind of difficult to move on from that to the next question, so excuse me while I lower the tone a bit. That Blue Engine asks, what were your earliest experiences and or memories of watching Thomas content on YouTube? So I mentioned this super briefly in my fan content video, but I think it's either The Six Vanishing Engines by Bram Groot Films or Thomas Fan 8's The Secret Island. And I do just want to talk about this very briefly because I think those productions have such an atmosphere to them. I mean, they're not particularly high budget, particularly, you know, Six Vanishing Engines is sort of very slapdash, but they have such a creativity and such a heart to them, and again, they just reflect a much simpler time in life, and I will always go back to them and I think remember them fondly because of that. Ertl is a super good range as well, and I think that's a big part of why I love those series so much. Immortal Empires King asks, besides Thomas, what other shows, movies, or franchises do you like and love to watch? So I've alluded to this in a couple of videos, but I'm a huge Lord of the Rings Tolkien fan. I just want to wax about the books and movies all day. I think they're amazing. The books are, I think, one of the greatest achievements in the history of the English language, and Peter Jackson's film trilogy is just amazing as well. Not perfect, but pretty close. As for TV shows, at the minute I've been super invested in the recent seasons of The Traitors here in the UK. Lots of people are into that, and it's lots of fun to kind of watch along with the country. Anything with a bit of mystery in it is good generally, so I'm a big fan of Agatha Christie, Anthony Horowitz, that sort of crowd as well. Isaiah Williams asks, do you think the show will ever fully course-correct itself? I know this is an absolute cop-out, but I think it's impossible to say, especially since a lot of the Thomas fans watching this probably won't even agree what course correction looks like. Basically, I think we have a lot of reasons to be skeptical right now. Media in general, particularly kids media, but all media, is in a very bad way at the minute with, I think, streaming has totally eroded sort of the TV atmosphere, the TV scene. But we also have a lot of reasons to be hopeful in terms of the brand. I mean, I know I keep sort of returning to this, people might think I'm talking about it too much, but the pilot on YouTube, the reaction that got was really special, and I think, I would hope that that's shown Mattel at least something of the sort of fan base they have. So yeah, I think there are reasons for skepticism and reasons for hope. Will the series ever fully course correct? Maybe. I don't know. Zachary Kim and others ask, how dated is my hit defense video at this point? So this is interesting. My hit defense video is now the second longest video on my channel, but it was the longest for a while. In terms of how dated it is, I think it's pretty dated in terms of my opinions on individual episodes. I mean, there were some like really bad episodes that I stuck up for in that video, and some real standout episodes that I didn't give enough credit to. But the overall argument that the hit era is underrated, I still agree with. I still agree with that. So I think, although it's very far from perfect, although there are many bad episodes, seasons 8 and 9 in particular are significantly better, I think, than people give them credit for. Their greatest sin is being very boring sometimes, and compared to most other eras of this show, that's not too great a crime, I don't think. Solar Lemon God asks, do you like lemons? Well, I'll admit I feel under a little bit of pressure here since you're claiming to be a lemon deity, but yes, I do like lemons. They're probably my 512th favourite thing, just above petrol and just below my family. Azuma892 asks, what do you dislike most about Wilbert Awdry's work? Or is there just anything in his work that bothers you? So this is a really difficult question. I think in terms of Wilbert's Railway Series books, some of the early volumes are very lacking for me. Very, not just like written for children, but very childish. And some of them don't have particularly interesting plots. I think particularly James the Red Engine, which Wilbert himself thought was quite weak, is a bit lacking in that regard. Generally though, I think the first half of the series just pales in comparison to the second. I mentioned this before, but I think it's sort of 8 Famous Engines or Duck and the Diesel Engine when Awdry's work goes from something that's good, charming kids' books to something really special. Wild Driver 64 asks, you mentioned that if you were to revive the series, you'd make one continuous story across multiple seasons with a cap on the amount of episodes. Quite right. How many episodes per season would you have? How many seasons would you have? And how many total episodes would you have? So this is another very difficult one. I think I would need to think more about the number of seasons. That's probably more difficult, but I would say that for each season, I think 16 episodes is a really healthy number, and I think 15 or 20 minutes is a sweet spot where you can have a longer form story that has time to develop itself, but it doesn't drag too much. And I don't think you need tons of episodes in every season. Yeah, I think my first season, as I mentioned in my most recent video, would probably include going back over some of Season 1's material and really setting up these characters with some new faces and that kind of thing that we know so well already. Diesel D7101 says, who or what inspired you to become a content creator? So I've always enjoyed writing and expressing my opinions, and obviously I care very deeply about this show. Some of you might remember that years and years ago there was a Thomas Cynic blog, which is thankfully for everyone now gone from the internet. I'm not too proud of what I did there really, but that was the sort of thing that became a platform to my YouTube channel. That came first. As is probably quite obvious to you guys, the visual aspects of video and editing are just kind of a necessary part of the process for me. I really just want to talk about this show that means so much to me, and I'm really grateful that I found an audience for that. Ollie Daly and others ask, what are your plans for next year? So this will be our last question, and the answer is, again, I don't know. Remember when I said in that update video a while back that any video on this channel could be my last one? Well, that's still true. The next 12 months are going to be insanely busy in real life for me. I'm not going to have much time to work on stuff. With that said, I do want to take a moment properly to thank you guys for all the support across the years, from videos that are now unlisted to my most recent endeavours. The fact that 15,000 people are interested in what I do and what I have to say is really amazing. I hope you all have a wonderful Christmas when the time comes, and a happy new year. Here's to a blessed 2026 for all of us.